You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.
The one where the Hawthorne wipes made Pierce the hero of the gay community.
Yes. Oh, pocket full of Hawthornes.
Pocket full of Hawthornes. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, so that was the last I saw. But yeah, Remedial Chaos Theory, that was, oh my God, that was such a good episode of TV.
It's so crazy because it's such a high concept episode, and it would have been really easy to just completely fuck up. But they pull it off so well, like ridiculously well. Yeah,
it was fantastic.
You still do have a bunch of good ones coming up here as I just kind of scroll.
Oh, I have no doubt about that.
But yeah, that is I would say it's like that one, Dungeons and Dragons, is a phenomenal episode, and I mean, there's obviously.
God, that one made Pierce like the biggest asshole who's ever lived.
Yep, it kind of does. That's the one where he screams out, "I still get erections," and Jeff goes, "What are you talking about?"
So, dude, you're so damn cruel to poor fat Neil.
Yeah, it's like one of those episodes where it's like just the right amount of seriousness with also being hilarious. Especially the
having like so much like cringe in it.
Mm-hmm. Like Chang doing blackface is really awkward. I mean, it works, but it's really awkward. Annie doing the pantomiming of what she does as Hector the Well Endowed to Abed, and like, okay, so then I flip her over and I just go in. Yeah, it's such a good episode. It's a great show. And real quick, and then we'll actually get started. And then the paintball two-parter to end season 2, where
goodness,
I forget his last name, Josh something, the dude from Lost, comes in as the yeah, and Jeff keeps going like, yeah, he's not that handsome. He's
not that handsome. No one's saying he is. Just know he's not that handsome.
Oh, it's so good.
Jeff's insecure, and Annie's like a straight up badass in that one, which is cool.
Yeah, and then Abed just completely flips in the second part to become Han Solo.
Oh yeah, it's been a really good show. It was one I was like always wanted to watch. You know, it's just I didn't have access to it forever. It's one of those I missed the first time.
It is a great show. We can talk a little bit more about that in a little bit when we hit the watch for. But for now, we will start episode 317 of the Foreign Affair podcast. Welcome, everyone. I don't know why the hell you'd be listening to this unless you just really needed like an hour of random bullshit to get away from everything else going on in the world. Because literally everything else in the world is more important than this podcast right now. But hey, if you're here,
apparently COVID's not anymore, so whatever.
Yeah, it's all good. That went away. So hey, we're just gonna try to go through it, and just kind of live in a bubble. We're gonna pretend this next like hour and change is part of one of the other timelines that isn't the darkest timeline.
Seriously, because I'm just going to go and tell you and we haven't talked before on any of this. We haven't had any talk about protests or riots. I don't really want to talk about protests or riots.
No.
Or anyone's response or anyone's feeling about it, because by God, I've heard everyone's at this point.
Yeah, I was like gonna talk a little, like do a very brief mention And even
I mean, if we want to do something for the leagues, or maybe some of the Germany stuff.
No, I was just gonna give like a very brief thing about like just one thing that struck out to me about it, but like even now, I'm just kind of like, as we've now broken the fourth wall. I think it was 3 episodes ago. One named producer Jackie is my girlfriend, and she does live with me. I know, crazy. For those of you
really good friends.
For those of you who jumped to episode 317 from like episode 300, I know you're shocked, and I'm sorry to spoil you like this. But I was going through some of the news, and again, not going to get into it, but I was flipping through. Somebody had compiled some clips of the LA County Police meeting that was live streamed on YouTube and Zoom. I think it was yesterday. And just a nice compilation of people saying things like "suck my dick" and "fuck you," which was, great to hear and made me laugh because God knows I needed a fucking laugh. But even one named producer Jackie was like, I appreciate this and I want to listen to it later, but today I kind of don't want to deal with any of that. So would you mind just sending me that, and then so I can look at it later? But today I don't want to listen to it. I'm like, yeah, sure. Totally fine with that. I completely get the need to unplug. So that's what we're mostly going to do today. Again, like Wes said, we might like briefly mention it when we talk a little bit about soccer. And I mean, obviously we have to talk about COVID because, I mean, it's intrinsically wrapped up in European soccer right now. We couldn't.
But don't worry. You can't get it by protesting.
It's true.
Apparently, you can't go to the gym, but you can get in groups of 5,000 to 10,000, stand right on each other. Everything's fine. Isn't that right, Governor Cooper?
Stay safe, everyone.
Direct shot toward the governor of the state.
So yeah, just stay safe, everyone. I know I say that at the end of the episode, but I'm going to say it at the beginning. Stay safe.
Yeah.
So let's just. Oh, by the way, this podcast is always presented by.
NGSC Sports.
Thanks. Yeah, them. This podcast is presented by NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. We never stop, and we're certainly not going to stop talking on this podcast. So let's get right into it. Wes, having to take the most unfortunate of breaks last week with work coming in a night shift for the first time in what seemed like forever.
Night shift.
Literally the day before. I guess we wouldn't have been able to really talk about it anyway then. But the day before, the Premier League announced its official restart, June 17th, Wednesday. It's going to be Arsenal versus Man City. And then it's, I think, Sheffield United along with Aston Villa will both be playing on that Wednesday. And then that Friday, we fully restart match week 29. So, Wes, I got to talk about it a little bit last week because I recorded the podcast after the news came out, or my part. I know you did Anfield Corner before this news came out, so I will give you a little bit of time to express how excited I'm sure you are now that you can finally start scribbling tentative dates on your calendar for when Liverpool will finally win the league.
Oh my goodness. It is in a world of darkness. In a world of darkness.
In the world.
There was light. And it was the return of Premier League. Of course, then the darkness decided to redescend when the rioters decided to trash and loot my beloved London Bridge. But anyway, that's secondary at this point.
We love you, London Bridge.
The London Bridge. That's right, the 17th of June. So as we record this, Ed, 2 weeks away. 2 weeks.
2 weeks, our podcast will have actual soccer to talk about. That's not German.
When they get to Prem back. Oh, and it's going to start off with Arsenal probably being very Arsenal-y against Manchester City, who I expect to come out of the blocks and just absolutely annihilate people for a while. Excuse me. We'll see what happens, but that is the official return game. It looks like we're going to get a lot of football stretched over a lot of days, which I'm not upset about. As long as we get them on TV, I don't think any of us are going to be upset about it at all. And actually, I mean, you hate to see that it came to all this, but it's actually pretty cool because we're going to get a lot more football maybe now, a lot more bang for our buck. If they're playing 2 to 3 matches a day, and we're getting to see a lot more. So, other than that Arsenal City match, no one else has really released a schedule yet, but that should be forthcoming in the next day or so. Apparently, from what we hear, there is a chance Liverpool, if Arsenal can get something done against City, there is a good chance Liverpool could lift the trophy or at least actually win the league against Everton in their first match back. I've seen conflicting reports. Are they going to be played at neutral venues? Are they going to be played at home stadiums? Of course, Liverpool are, I think every Liverpool supporter, everyone in the club really want it to be played at home and away grounds for our chance to win it at Anfield, which would be big for us. But at the end of the day, just lifting the trophy is going to be awesome. Klopp's already said, we're going to have a parade. We just don't know when we're going to do it yet, but we're going to have a parade, by God. So, you know what? The title's coming home. It's coming back where it belongs. It's just we don't know an exact date yet.
Yeah, and
but we are going to get to see it, and hopefully everything will go smoothly, and we'll get to finish out this season in a timely manner.
Yeah, that's the hope. I do remember, and I hadn't heard much about it lately, but I do remember that the Champions League is supposed to restart like early August. So God only knows how much Premier League we're going to have to fit in here. I believe we'll be on match week 29, which means I believe we have 10 matches left for everybody to play. So there's still a lot to go, or maybe I'm one off, but it's around there. It's 9 to 10 matches left for people to play. Serie A, this came through. This is from The Athletic. Serie A is planning on doing 124 games in 44 days. So they are going to be. Wes is talking about doing every couple days, and it looks like what the Prem's going to do is have a lot of broadcast times. So I think it's like going to be 5 on Saturday, so a lot of people can watch the matches. Serie A is just going to pack them all the fuck in. Like every day there's going to be soccer over in Italy. So that is going to be crazy. But yeah, it's good that there's finally an ending to this. And the hope is, of course, that we don't get, we don't have to shut down again. And I'm very hopeful with the way testing's been going. Of course, in this latest round of testing, it would be one Tottenham player out of literally every test in the Premier League that would be done. You don't want to sound callous because it is unfortunate that someone tested positive from anybody, especially Tottenham. If there is any silver lining, it was reported that it does not seem to have been one of the main players, like main 15, 16, whatever on the team. But that is unfortunate that anybody would be getting positive results. But it does seem like whatever the Premier League teams and staffs have been doing has been working, and there have been very, very few positive cases of COVID-19 amongst the Premier League teams. So that is a positive. Now, what happens when play resumes, we won't know. But the hope is, because I haven't heard of a spike in Germany, nobody's been reporting that after the Bundesliga restarted. The hope is that this will be similar here in the Premier League. And yeah, I'd heard similar what you'd heard. I've heard people saying that no, it's all wherever the match is supposed to be played, that's where it's going to be played. I've heard, matches with Liverpool that will be factoring into the title could be moved. I've heard London derbies, especially the North London derby that was going to be at New Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, named till TBA. That could get moved to a neutral venue. But the latest reports seem like it's just going to be played at the proper grounds. So we'll know, as Wes said, we will know in a couple days' time or less. Official schedules going all the way forward and seeing it, but it's just really exciting to have something positive coming back here. So here we go. We made it, everybody. We 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. Just 2 more weeks.
2 weeks. And apparently they've been given permission to play some friendlies before then.
Yes, there will be that.
To get a few warm-up matches.
Mm-hmm. It does also seem, I believe we've mentioned this in a previous podcast, I believe it's all but been confirmed, if not just outright confirmed. They will be coming back with 5 subs. That will be done, just like it's being done in Germany. So that will be taken into account as well. The Champions League final, this came from the New York Times. The Champions League final looks like it's being moved from Istanbul, which they said, hey, Liverpool already got knocked out, so we don't really need to have it here anymore, obviously. I got them. It's just 1 week. It was 1 week too late on the delay. But it looks like they've looked at a couple different grounds. Portugal's been seen, maybe Poland. So we'll have to see what UEFA ends up deciding to do for the Champions League final, but it does not look like it will be held in Istanbul anymore. And I did want to get into this story.
Of course, once Liverpool went out, there was no need to have it in Istanbul anymore.
Of course not. Because there was one story, and I did text Mr. Bradshaw about this when it popped up on my feed, because I couldn't not text it to him. And it was going to be on last week's docket, but I held it. I don't even think I teased it. I held it for this week. This is an article coming to us from The Guardian. Headline: Newcastle takeover in serious doubt as WTO rules pirate TV channel is Saudi.
We never expected anything less.
We really didn't. So just to quickly sum it up, one of the things that the Saudi Arabia funded takeover has as part of its inventory of properties is a channel called Be Out Q in Saudi Arabia, which illegally streams matches from the Premier League, Liga, UEFA, FIFA, you name it. They illegally stream the matches. So of all the things, definitely not the human rights abuses going on in that part of the world. No. It's the pirating of soccer streams.
Damn right. Nobody gonna get shit for free from the Premier League.
Of course, but Wes, this is you were waiting. You said it from the moment we talked about it on this podcast. You said it's never over till it's over, and you absolutely expected something to happen, and it hasn't completely derailed the eventual selling of the team from Mike Ashley, but this would be the most expectedly unexpected twist in this saga for Newcastle fans if this did in fact end up derailing it.
And what sucks, I have no hate for Newcastle. I want Newcastle to be among those top teams in the league because
proud group.
They're just exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Newcastle's just one of those clubs. I've always said it. Like, I can't stand Notre Dame in college football, but damn it, it's more interesting when Notre Dame is good.
Mm-hmm.
And if Newcastle were really up there competing, it would just be more interesting, more fun. It would be more good football in England. But that said, we know who we're dealing with here. This is Mike Ashley, bro.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is Newcastle. Nothing goes normal for them. And here it goes again now over pirated TV in Saudi Arabia. Jesus, of course. Pirated TV in Saudi Arabia does it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, me. So, yeah, I have no clue what's going to happen. Well, I mean, I knew what was going to happen, but
you did.
I happen to be right.
Let this be a lesson. Wes is always right.
That's right. Yeah, can we send this to my ex-wife?
Oh, man. Oh,
oh dear. She hears this. Oh, God.
I did also then want to close our little soccer talk here with this article coming out from Awful Announcing, and this was also from a couple weeks ago. So the Daily Express, not one of the more reputable London newspaper establishments, they put out a correction to an article from September 11th, 2019. And again, this was only like a couple weeks ago, they published this correction. And here's the correction. And I'm quoting from this article here on Awful Announcing. In an article entitled, quote, "Why are Man City fans booing Liverpool star James Milner in Vincent Company testimonial," published on September 11th, 2019, we reported that James Milner was booed by Manchester City supporters when he touched the ball during the Vincent Company's testimonial. The Vincent Company's testimonial, whatever. In fact, the article had been written before the game took place and was published in error. James Milner did not play in this match and was therefore not booed. The wording has been published following an upheld ruling by the Independent Press Standards Organization. I like, sometimes you just can't make this shit up. It is hilarious, and it's funny because I don't feel like Manchester City fans, the ones that actually exist, would actually have that much hate for James Milner. I mean, he was a part of their first Premier League winning team of this millennium. It was a big part of that, and didn't seem to be an acrimonious transfer out of Man City, so that always would have struck me as odd to begin with. But to write it, so that means that somebody before this match took place was like, I know who City fans are gonna boo. They're gonna boo James Milner, that son of a bitch. Like, of all people, boring James Milner, Wes, is not the person I would expect to get booed in a Manchester City testimonial. I just don't understand it.
I mean, James Milner did nothing for Manchester City than give everything he had and, as you said, leave under good circumstances. I mean, it wasn't like, now City would have liked to re-sign him, if nothing else, just to keep him away from someone else. But, you know, Milner came, he did a great job for him, and then he left. You know, and he didn't. It's not like he went to Manchester United. At the time he went to Liverpool, that wasn't your rival.
Yeah,
that wasn't your rival. So, yeah, if anything, they would boo Milner because, I mean, he is a part of this Liverpool team that have finally overtaken City. So, if anything, I guess that. But come on, that's just silly, man. To boo James Milner. And yes, he wasn't, as you said, he wasn't at the match playing. You know, there was obviously, you know, tea bags that needed to be sorted and, you know, sheets that needed to be folded.
Of course.
So, you know, you can't hate that man. That man's great.
Just, this could be a much more serious story, but because it's James Milner and it's a testimonial, it doesn't really matter. But it does kind of make you wonder. What paper is this again? The Daily Express. How many articles are you writing before matches start and then not correcting when something doesn't happen? Question mark. Makes you think. Makes you think. All right. So that's most of the soccer talk we wanted to do. Wes, if there's anything else you wanted to mention before we just transition, I was going to transition into a little baseball before we kept going on the pod. But is there any other soccer talk you wanted to do?
Well, my only thing. Well, I guess we'll bring it up when we do the our athletic articles of the week.
Sure.
I have a fun little story that's made the rounds on Merseyside that everybody's loving right now. So.
There's so much sarcasm in that voice. So I will say this again to bring up the athletic. The latest in what is becoming maybe one of the biggest labor disputes of, I think, Wes and our lifetimes. Maybe only rivaling the 1994 baseball strike. Summed it up best right here in this latest article from 2 days ago on The Athletic by Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellich. After heated meeting on player pay, Major League Baseball threatens 50-game schedule. And if you're wondering why is that a threat, why is a 50-game schedule a threat? It's because, the agreement would be that players get a prorated part of their salary based on how many games are in the season. Now, obviously, players would like more games to be in the season, so they get more of their salary. Owners would obviously not want that. There had been bandied about an 82-game season to start around early July. The Union-Based Players Association came back with, well, what if we played about 100, but you actually only pay us for 80? Which is kind of weird, but does want to like kind of extend the season and get some more of that service time as well. But this is getting really ugly really quick, and you're seeing a very unified front on both sides for the most part of players really digging their heels in, and owners doing, and Commissioner, yeah, we'll give him that title, Commissioner Rob Manfred, digging in on the other side, and it really seems like there's a chance that we might not have a season. I know people keep saying no, you know, there's still time. They'll get a deal done. They have to get a deal done because the damage to baseball, if they don't and there's no season, could be almost irreparable. I think we're at the point now with some of the things the owners have done, such as leaking proposals to paint players in a negative light, as well as players seeming unsympathetic because to fans like you and me, they make millions upon millions of dollars just playing, just playing baseball. I'm using big air quotes for that. That I don't know if this is going to come to a good conclusion, Wes. And I just part of that darkest timeline theory. And as we're both baseball fans, I find myself siding with players because I believe that, you know, they deserve to get paid a lot of money for what they do and how much time and effort they put in, and the fact that owners make a lot of money. But this has become a very dirty negotiation, and I'm very worried that this will damage baseball much worse than the '94 strike ever did. And this could be really bad.
And when we sit here and say, you know, these guys all making millions and millions of dollars, let's dial that back just a little bit. Now, the last time they came out with an average salary for Major League Baseball was 2018.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Basically, $4.1 million was the average salary for a Major League Baseball player. Yes, that's great money.
Yeah, sure.
You know, trust me, I would love to make $4 million a year. I would have no problem with that. But when we take into account that there are so many other players in Major League Baseball that aren't like Trout, that aren't Bryce Harper, that aren't Manny Machado and Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer, who are the guys who are making the mega bucks, the $30 million a year plus guys. You know, that handful of guys really shoots that number up. You know, and a guy that I mention a lot on here who is an actual friend of mine who plays for the Anaheim Angels, Brian Goodwin.
Yes.
Brian, so this season, Brian, who was arbitration eligible for the first time this year, won an arbitration case. Brian Goodwin this year was set to make $2.2 million.
That's great.
First time he'll ever make more than $1 million in a season. He was basically on the Major League minimum his first few years of the league. So getting his chance this year to make $2.2 million. So obviously he's not even making the Major League average. You know, he's making half the Major League average. And, you know, if you take half his salary away, I mean, he's going to make, say, $1 million, which is still, once again, that's really good. We'll never forget, I mean, there's still, you know, there's taxes. People still have to pay what they have to pay. But at the same time, you know, when you look at these guys, and this is why I don't bitch about sports salaries. You know, say you go to school to be a hotshot lawyer at a law firm, and you start making $2 million a year, right? You're working for a big firm in Raleigh, and you're making $2 million a year. Well, you know what? Yeah, you know, the baseball player over here, he might be making $4 million a year. Oh, so he's making more money than me. Here's the thing. You can be a lawyer till you're 80. You know, that guy who's making $4 million this year and next year and the year after, you know, he might be 27 years old. Well, you know what? By the time he's 35, his career's over.
Yeah, if he's lucky.
His earning potential is over as a baseball player. The chance to make those big salaries is over. Where at 35, if you're the lawyer at the law firm, at 35, you're just getting entrenched in there. 35 is like you're still paying your dues. You're still making your $1 million a year at that point, right? You still have another 30 to 40 years of earning potential in front of you, where the baseball player, the football player, the basketball player, they're done.
Yeah. I
have zero issue with salaries that these guys make. I am firmly, and this is the righty of West coming up, because you know me, Ed, fiscal conservative here.
Yes.
I am 100%. You are worth what somebody is willing to pay you.
Bingo.
No one ever said you have to pay Mike Trout $30 million a year. You know what? And I'm guessing it's 30. I know it's probably actually more than 30.
37.
You were 30. No one said you held against it. You have to pay Mike Trout $37 million a year. You know who decided that? The Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles, California, Orange County, left coast, whatever they're calling themselves. They're the ones who decided, I'm going to pay Mike Trout $37 million a year. You know what Mike Trout said? Cool.
Nice. I'll take it.
Okay. Hey, we've got an agreement.
Yeah.
I'm a free enterprise, free market kind of person. I am a go out and make what you want, or go out and make what you can. You know what? With my job that I do, I'm not going to make $37 million a year. I'm not going to make $37 million in a lifetime. But you know what? With my job, if another county comes along and I apply there and they're like, hey, Wes, we're going to pay you $3 more an hour to come here. You know what? That's my prerogative. If I want to do that, if I want to go and take that job and make more money, that's my prerogative, because someone is willing to pay me that money. The same with you in your career, Ed, because I know where you were before you are where you are now.
Yeah.
And you took an offer that you felt was more worthwhile to you as a person. And there you go. But no one held a gun to anyone's head saying, you've got to give this to Edward.
Yeah, that's true.
Or it's not fair that you're paying this to Edward. Why? They're the ones who decided to pay it to you. And that's where I understand a lot of people get pissed because, well, they're just playing a game. Teachers and firemen, they should be making this money. Well, I go by the old Nick Saban thing. People say, I can't believe Nick Saban makes so much money. He's the highest paid state employee in the entire state of Alabama. Well, it's kind of like Nick Saban says, 100,000 people don't come to watch a biology professor do his class at a football stadium.
Unfortunately true.
So, fortunate or unfortunate, when you're the person or the people generating this income, you're due more of it. And if you go and you're in a negotiation position and your services are deemed to be special, which, let's put it this way, why is Mike Trout the highest paid player in baseball? He's the best player in baseball.
Yes.
There's no one else in the world right now who does or can do what Mike Trout does. There's no one else in the world who's doing, well, let's say no one else. There is a very extremely minuscule percentage of the world's population that can do what Mike Trout does, or do what Clayton Kershaw does, or do what Tom Brady does, or do what LeBron James does, or do what Lionel Messi does. The population percentage is so astronomically tiny that those guys, they're special. And if you want them to represent you, if you want them on your team, if you want them working for you, if you want that hotshot lawyer working for you, if you want that Wall Street hedge fund manager working for you, you pay them what they feel they're worth and what you feel they're worth. So at the end of the day, baseball owners, I'm going to say every one of them's a billionaire. I'm just guessing that off my head. This day and age, you're not finding the local millionaire who happens to own the ball club anymore. There's so much money floating around. John Henry's a billionaire. I understand this. At the end of the day, I don't feel sorry for the billionaires because, you know what? They're the ones, once again, they negotiated what they're paying people. So I don't feel bad for them crying poor because some things have happened here and they're having to renegotiate. I don't think suddenly I don't take their side in this whole deal. I'm more of a players person. I take the players side because at the end of the day, the players are the ones who, we truly care about at the end of the day. As a Liverpool fan, you know what? It's awesome that we made all that profit that we made. Sweet, put it back in the team because I want my club to go win. Just look down the road at Manchester United. You think their fans are real happy that the Glazer family's making all that money?
Not terribly.
There's a really good article in The Athletic about that, actually. So, no, they are very pissed that they're making all that money while not putting it back into the club. So, at the end of the day, as sports fans, we want our sports teams to do the absolute best they can do. We want what's best for them. And we want those players who are going to give us a chance at glory, at winning, at silverware, at World Series titles, however you want to put it. And that's why I back the players in this situation. So,
well, and to that point a little bit, you're talking about lifting silverware. When the Red Sox won it back in 2017, and as much as I like John Henry, I won't go so far as to say I love him. I like him well enough. Even
I obviously hold Mr. Henry in a different place. But...
Yes, yes, because you are like two of the teams he owns.
Exactly, because he owns the two most beloved teams in all. So.
Mine only the one. But in 2017, after the Red Sox won the World Series, did I give a shit about watching John Henry lift the trophy? No. I want to watch Mookie Betts lift the trophy. I want to watch those guys. I want to watch David Price lift the trophy. I want to watch Rafael Devers lift the trophy. I don't give a fuck about John Henry lifting the trophy. Like, great, thank you so much for owning the team and putting money into it, even though you should have kept Mookie Betts. But, old ones.
I agree. And let's this way, on top of that, who am I more worried about lifting the Premier League trophy? Is it John Henry or Jordan frickin' Henderson?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there is one person I'm waiting to lift that trophy, and that's Jordan Henderson. And I hope Mr. Henry has many awesome photo ops with that trophy. But what matters is Jordan Henderson and Jurgen Klopp lifting that trophy.
So, I mean, that's kind of where we are. Also, I will say this because I looked this up on Baseball Reference, and this is how I was able to give you that 37 million number for Mike Trout. Real quick, and yes, Mike Trout is definitely an edge case here. I understand that. But let's remember back in his 2012 season when he only didn't win the MVP because Miguel Cabrera hit a Triple Crown. And again, that was Mike Trout's rookie season. Mike Trout made just under $500,000 that year.
There you go.
The next year he made $510,000. The next year he made $1 million. The next year he made $6 million. So it started getting up there. It got up there very quickly. Right. But a lot of guys aren't that lucky, and a lot of guys don't get to shoot up there. It's great to hear Brian, got a nice arbitration win, is now can make a couple million. And as you said, those Mike Trout numbers are going to skew the average a little bit,
right?
with those few edge cases. I don't remember exactly what the minimum salary is. I think it's like $400,000.
It is. Hold on. So it's around 550. Hold on. This year was set to be 563,500.
Okay, which again, not bad.
No.
But still, again, these players have to dedicate a lot of time, away from their families, especially if this season goes on, and that's something else. Mike Trout is brought up. I forget there's a pitcher. He's the highest paid pitcher. I think he was with the Astros last year.
God, playing for the Yankees now. Garrett Cole.
Yeah, Garrett Cole. Both of them, oddly enough, their wives are pregnant. Now, clearly, they don't want to risk transmitting anything to them, just like we talked about Troy Deeney a few weeks ago, not wanting to do it in the Premier League. So if a person wants to sit out for the season, a lot of people are saying, well, if I don't want to do my job, I just don't get paid. Do you just not pay Mike Trout because his wife is pregnant and he doesn't want to risk her getting sick? I don't know.
I'll say this, and part of it, once again, are those exception players where you're Garrett Cole or you're Mike Trout or you're Bryce Harper, and you have these massive contracts. if you're not going to make that money back this year anyway, let's put it this way. If Mike Trout don't get paid this year, it's not like Mike Trout ain't going to be able to pay his utility bill.
Sure.
So I think there are maybe a handful of big-time players who, at the end of this, if you're going to play a 50-game season, Mike Trout might look at it and say, you know what? I've got enough goodwill built up in this city. I've got a massive contract with a lot of years ahead of me here. Fuck it. I won't get paid this year.
Well, and real quick, let's just do some quick math. So 50-game season would be roughly a third. It's a little less than a third, but because it's 162 games. But for quick math's sake, let's just put it at a third. So he's making almost $38 million. So a third of that would be $13 million. And again, $13 million for some of us is a lot of money. When it's $13 million,
for most of us, that's life-changing money.
Exactly. For a man who has career to date made $152 million, and I believe that's counting endorsements. No, that's not counting endorsements. So a guy that's made already $152 million, why should he have to risk anything for $13 million?
Plus still has, off the top of my head, say $400 million to come his way.
At least, because he's got 2021 to 2030 at $37 million a year.
Yeah. So I mean, there's plenty of money to come. Once again, I'm sure he can live comfortably off what he's already made. Endorsements, and you know what? He might still make some endorsement money because I mean, it's not like he can't go do a photo shoot or something.
Sure.
But. And this isn't anything I've heard. I'm just kind of coming up with this off the top of my head.
Sure.
I just wonder if you could see some of these top guys who have something like that with, say, a pregnant wife at home or have, young children, which most of them probably do. If they might say, you know what, $10 to $15 million this year, I'll give it up to make sure that everything's okay at home. And then, you know what, I'll show up in February and I might have some bad press from it. Now, it might take a little bit of a PR hit, but hell, all you got to do is all Mike Trout would have to do is come back and hit 320 and 40 home runs and be an MVP again. And all right, we're fine. Yeah. Goodwill. Cool. We're cool.
And the other thing, I was just going to say, the other thing we haven't really talked about, because we've talked a lot about the major leagues. There's a lot of minor league players who aren't making anywhere close to that league minimum. And as part of the news, and this is kind of why I tempered my love of John Henry, part of that news was the Red Sox deciding to cut quite a few players from their minor league teams. Other organizations have done it. Oakland, I think, cut their entire stipend for their minor leagues for a little bit. The Nationals did it, or they reduced their stipend, and then they reversed position on it because of all the bad press they got. And because some of their actual major league players kind of stepped in and were like, "Well, we'll cover it if it's that big a deal. We'll take care of it if it matters that much to you." So this could have an effect on a lot of those players if there isn't a season. Go ahead.
And just talking about minor league salaries, right now the current minimum minor league baseball salary in rookie league is $290 a week for a 3-month season. So, I mean, you ain't making no money there. Up to the minimum is $500 a week in AAA for a 5-month season. So, I mean, you think about, that's $10,000. That's $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, now that is the minimum, yes, and there are a lot of guys making more than that, but they're not making that much money. I mean, they only get paid. Once again, they only get paid while they're playing games.
Yeah.
It's a 5-month season in the minors. That's 7 other months you're not getting paid. So, for those guys, I mean, they've got to be out, other than the bonus babies maybe, those guys are out hustling right now doing something, trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very difficult time. Here's the thing. Don't worry about Mike Trout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know we keep saying Mike Trout, and we love Mike Trout. There's no Mike Trout hate from us.
No.
Don't worry about Mike Trout. He's just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about that 25, 26-year-old who's in AA and is trying to get his shot up in the majors. Worry about that guy who has sacrificed a lot of his, early earning potential in life to chase his dream to be a baseball player. And suddenly he's having to sit there like, shit, I wasn't making any money to start with. Now I'm not making any money. Mm-hmm. And what am I going to do? And, and his wife is at home pregnant right now with a kid. So.
Well, and I mean, we can talk about Brian Goodwin. Brian, this past year was his biggest year in the majors. I mean, the other seasons he spent, he came up at 2016, played 22 games, played about a half season in 2017 and 18.
That's some injuries those years, but he was up on the major league roster those years. So.
And then played 136 games for the Angels last year and did pretty well. But he's also already 29. So he is one of those guys that fortunately was able to break out of the minors and make good on his talent promise and become a major leaguer. And hopefully whenever he's able to get back out there, we'll be able to continue being a productive major league outfielder. But again, he has maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I love you, Brian Goodwin. I hope you play for 20 years. But
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, logically, if he can play into his mid-30s, he's got six earning years left, maybe 7.
Yeah,
because he does have a great arm and is a good range defender. So, but one thing about Brian was a bonus baby.
That's true.
Brian was the first pick of the supplemental first round in the year that he came out, got a nice signing bonus. Once again, I know Brian, I've known him a long time, comes from a very good family where it wasn't imperative that Brian get that money because he had to take care of everyone. Comes from a good, solid family background. So Brian basically took that bonus, stuck it in the bank, and to this moment, don't think he's ever touched it. So, he was very lucky on that end. But yeah, I mean, as far as big earning potential, let's put it this way. Mike Trout, since we keep going back to Mike Trout and his $500 million he's going to end up making, plus. But, when Mike Trout is done with baseball at age 37, 38, at the age I am now, when Mike Trout retires, if he doesn't ever want to do another thing the rest of his life, he doesn't have to. Yeah. Brian Goodwin is going to finish up and go get a job somewhere. Now, what he does, who knows? But, that's the reality for Brian one day is Brian's going to have to find something after baseball to do. So, once again, those guys, they do have the chance to make really nice salaries for a very short time of their life. So, don't think every single pro baseball player you meet is, a gazillionaire like Alex Rodriguez or Mike Trout.
Exactly. Just want to point out 2 real quick things and then we can move on. Just going on Brian's baseball reference page. One thing I did not know about him, he's a Scott Boras client.
That's right.
Did not know that. Did not know that about him. He's a Scott Boras client. All right. The other thing, and I think this is just kind of interesting, Baseball Reference likes to do this thing called similarity scores, which tries to just show, by compiling a bunch of statistics, bring up an average score for how well you've done in your career, and then compare you to other players adjusted for parks and eras and stuff like that. And one of the people in the similar batters through age 28 seasons, there's a couple names you might recognize, like Nolan Reimold, Brandon Moss, Chris Richard, a couple of those, but one of them really stuck out, and it's this number 8 to show you where Brian Goodwin's ceiling could be if he actually explodes from age 28 on. Number 8 on this list, Nelson Cruz.
Ooh.
Nelson Cruz is a pretty good ball player,
and is still getting paid right now to hit baseballs.
Yes, he is. So, not saying
30, so.
Nelson Cruz is 30, is almost 40. So, not saying Brian Goodwin is the next Nelson Cruz. Just saying he has similar numbers that in the majors that Nelson Cruz had when he was 28. So,
but one thing he's got on Nelson Cruz.
What's that?
12 years ago yesterday, Brian Goodwin led the Rocky Mountain Griffons in the 3A state championship at Five County Stadium. Go get them, boys! Dang right, we celebrate that day.
Oh, it's been a while.
12 years later. 12 years later, Ed, my life peaked. 8 years after I graduated high school in my high school in the state baseball title, my life peaked. There we go.
Oh, man. Oh.
Sad individual.
It's fine.
Thank you for reassuring me.
No problem. So yeah, that's what's going on. MLS, they might be coming back soon. They ratified something or another. Basketball, NBA might be starting in Orlando and down in Disney World.
They've actually got an interesting setup for that.
Yeah,
they are only bringing
teams.
in 22 teams.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the teams that are in playoff position or within 6 games of a playoff position.
Yeah,
and they're going to play a short schedule. That's actually pretty cool.
It's going to be interesting. Cool. Yeah, going to be interesting to see how they do that. That's a lot of teams in one area. But hey, I'm sure that if anyone can figure it out, it'll be the NBA. And real quick, and this is something I kind of referenced this, or I was going to reference this earlier, and I didn't really do it because I wanted to give Wes a chance to talk, and I had been draining on it for a while. And then we'll move on from Major League Baseball. One reason, real quick, that Major League Baseball, it is very important that they actually have a season and not turn a bunch of fans off. And yes, this is my own little esports bias showing here. I understand that. But a study was actually released, and this was a few months ago. This may be January, February. But basically, the LCS, which is the North American Professional League of Legends League, which is just for North America, was the third most watched professional league in terms of average minutes watched by people ages 18 to 34 in the United States. They were only behind the NFL and the NBA, which means they were ahead of Major League Baseball. Now, is that the most reliable viewership stat in the world? It's okay. But the fact that 18 to 34-year-olds on average are watching more of North American League of Legends, which I can say because I follow it, is maybe the 4th best region in the world outside of like Korea, China, and Europe. So it's like it's pretty good, but not great. And that's beating Major League Baseball. That's why Major League Baseball can't have a non-season, because people like me and of my age and younger, they can lose them. They already have been losing them, and a season that just doesn't happen could just actually kill the sport. Not NASCAR level kill, but it would be really, really. I gotcha, NASCAR. But it's
look, we're talking Manchester City Champions League match kill.
Yes. Oh. Got him again. So with that, we'll head into our regular pimping of generally athletic articles. Wes, what you got in the hopper over there? Because I know you said you had a little bit going on over there.
Absolutely. 2 for me this week.
Okay.
One of them, The Athletic, has jumped into a lot of television stuff.
Ooh, okay.
For Sports and TV Week.
Oh yes.
And this was last week on there, so all this is in there. Great stuff. And the article that really jumped out, there were so many of them. The one that really jumped out to me are 50 favorite scripted sports episodes and scenes. Number 1, I'll go ahead and spoil it for you folks. Number 1, Seinfeld, the boyfriend, aka the second spitter. The one starring Keith Hernandez, where Kramer and Newman spin the tale JFK style, being spit on after a Mets game, only to find out it was that damn Roger McDowell. Number 2, I'm giving you the top 5. Number 2, The Simpsons, Homer at the Bat.
Oh, it's such a good episode.
Still to this day, my favorite ever episode of The Simpsons. I will find myself randomly singing "We're Talking Softball" and talk about Steve Saxon is running with the log, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw.
Yes.
So good. Me and my kid watched it the other night. She didn't totally get it, but she thought it was funny. Number 3 is Seinfeld, The Wink. This is the one where Kramer promises a sick boy in the hospital that Paul O'Neill, his favorite player, will hit 2 home runs in the next game. O'Neill gets pissed at him. And the best part of it was, after a full minute, O'Neill finally asked the obvious question, how the heck did you get in here anyway? Number 4, Cheers. Of course, Cheers was built around a former Red Sox pitcher, fictional pitcher, Sam Malone.
One of the greats.
One of the greats. Played by one of our favorites, Mr. Ted Danson.
Yes.
And I've caught a few Cheers over the years, but never seen them all. But I almost want to go back and start watching Cheers now because of all the stuff I've read, sports related to. Okay. And number 5 was another Cheers, Where Have All the Floorboards Gone? This one had Kevin McHale in it. It was about the Celtics. And just some great stuff, man. But there are 50 of them. Number 7 is a Wire episode. Ooh. I love The Wire.
Yes.
A couple of Curb Your Enthusiasms in there, another Cheers. So Cheers, 3 of the top 10. The Office popping in at 11. Parks and Rec at number 12. The Telethon episode.
Wait, what was
it? Was the last episode of the first era of Parks. It was said Adam Scott and Rob Lowe arrived the next week and elevated a terrific show into an all-time comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It was the one with Detlef Schrempf.
Yes.
The all-night diabetes research telethon. There were a few of them, Parks and Rec in here, basically based around Roy Hibbert.
Yes, he's great.
And how one of them was where he bought everybody dinner except Tom because Tom owed him money.
Yes. Damn, Entertainment 720.
Entertainment 720 was amazing. So anyway, that was that one on that. And the other one that had my soccer tie-in, The Rise of Harvey Elliott, Liverpool's Little Diamond. Of course, it's a good article about, don't get me wrong, it's a good article about Harvey Elliott. The story that starts it is what has literally just taken Merseyside by storm this week. This is amazing. So with Harvey Elliott it was kind of made known that he was going to be leaving Fulham. Basically, all the royalty of Europe was trying to woo him to their side. Real Madrid calls. They take him on a tour of the Bernabeu. They've got this, at the time, 15, 16-year-old kid in there. He's walking through the locker room at the Bernabeu, and they come to a locker of club captain, the legendary Sergio Ramos, his shirt hanging on the wall. Real's charm offensive included an offer to arrange for the talented teenager to meet their long-serving captain. Harvey Elliott replied, "No, it's okay, thanks. I don't like him after what he did to Mo Salah." Boom! Madrid, suck it, Sergio Ramos. You're the worst. And Harvey Elliott's a Liverpool legend already at 16. We love that kid. And that was just absolutely magnificent. So, Harvey Elliott, man. What can you say? We saw him 6 times this year play for the Reds. We saw glimpses of hopefully what will be an epic future to come for the lad. And then we hear that he basically said, "I have no desire to meet Sergio Ramos. He's an asshole." He's one of us. He believes like we believe.
Was it worth it, Sergio? Was it worth it? He'll probably tell you yes.
Yeah, fuck him. But yeah, those are my 2 articles to hit this week. But I mean, really, folks, there's The Athletic. We should really be getting a sponsorship from these guys. I mean, there's so much good stuff on there. I have so many stories to read when I go back to work this week.
It's phenomenal.
Saved and ready to go. Don't ride this week. Rocky Mount's been good. Let's keep it that way. I need plenty of time to read my athletic article.
For now. I have a couple. This I thought was a pretty interesting one. This was by Daniel Taylor. This was kind of his weekly column for this week, saying football has changed, and perhaps Paul Pogba should too. It hits a lot of the familiar notes, but it does, I don't keep up with transfer news as much as my colleague here does. So to read in there that Pogba has been casting eyes back towards Juventus, nearly made me throw my phone across the room when I read that. Not because I give a shit if Paul Pogba stays at Manchester United or not, but if he goes from United to Juventus and back to United and then back to Juventus, my head might actually explode. So that was just one of the many things. Always, there's great Zlatan quotes in there because, Zlatan makes every article better. So that's always great. It just does kind of give a little bit of perspective, without being maybe too hard on Pogba, but just maybe hard enough, about what his role could be at the club moving forward. So that was a really good one. And then just again, to keep up with the daily goings on, between the players of Major League Baseball and the owners, Ken Rosenthal and all associated with them have been doing some absolutely fantastic work. And as always, if you want to read about baseball, but don't want to be this more serious part, as we try to do a lot of on this pod, Joe Posnanski is still doing his 60 Great Moments series, and it's just still fantastic. So go check those out. There are plenty to do. Or if you're just waiting for all 60 to be released, we're about halfway through. So, you know what? By the time baseball maybe gets back, maybe that series will be done. So there you go. That's.
I'm waiting on that one. I'm still working my way through the 100 greatest players of all time.
Such two really good series so far.
I've gone through about 30 of them at this point. I think those are really good.
That's really good.
But it's just there's so much on the Athletic. It's like I can't just sit there and dedicate myself to reading the 100 best players. I guess I should have done it one on a daily basis like he did it. But
it's not as easy as like binge watching a show. I will say that.
Even though they are easy reads, they're very good reads.
They are. So that'll do it though for us pimping out the Athletic as we always do on a weekly basis. Let's hit the watch for. Wes, what you watching in the week that was or the week that will be?
I want to start with a new podcast.
Oh, okay.
So I pit Parcast all the time because, damn it, they just give me all this great content. One I found of theirs called Famous Fates.
Oh.
Each week, how they were doing it to start with was they were releasing 5 podcasts a week, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes apiece. And they would all have some sort of relation to each other. I'm trying to think. The first one, the first 5 were like film people, movie stars. And it would basically go through their life, and then all of them had some sort of basically met their maker too early. Mm-hmm. Famous Fates, as it's called. Okay. So I'm trying to think back now. The first one was actually, of all people, was John Candy.
Oh, okay.
The second one was John Belushi, excuse me, not Jim. Jim's still around. Yeah. John Belushi. James Dean was in there. Marilyn Monroe was in there. Just some really, really interesting stuff. And in that 30 to 40 minutes, they don't go super in depth on everyone because how can you on somebody's life at that time? But they use some voice actors, do some different things. They keep it's upbeat, it's quick, and it's informative. And they're really interesting things. Each week that they release them is a different deal. I'm actually in one right now. It's political figures, okay, which is really, really interesting. I'm coming up on a block that was musicians. And just off the top of my head thinking, I want to say Kurt Cobain's in there, Jimi Hendrix. Like I said, just off the top of my head, because I don't have my phone in front of me. But it's a really, really interesting, thing. And I like my historical stuff, as we well know. Mm-hmm. Now, that's Parcast. You can only find that one on Spotify. That's a Spotify exclusive.
Okay.
So check it out. Famous Fates. Check it out. As far as TV, man, you know what I'm watching. I'm watching Community. And me and the parents are continuing North and South, which suddenly this week takes on an even different tone with everything going on race-wise, because hey, we're in 1864 at this point on North and South, and as watching it today, Lincoln's freed the slaves, and they're still getting treated like shit even after they're freed, and however you want to look at that. But it's still my favorite miniseries of all time. So we're getting near the end. We're getting near the end of the war, Ed. Like I said, it's 1864. What a year! I believe Abner Doubleday was teaching baseball to a group of his Union soldiers in fields around Pennsylvania. And who the hell knew one day Mike Trout would make $38 million playing back? I bet they'd be bitching about them salaries back then.
Spoiler alert. Mike Trout was actually a time traveler. He was Abner Doubleday. He went back in time to make sure that baseball would be created so that he would have a way to make tons of money.
That's right. Folks, in reality, Mike Trout has charged up that hill at Gettysburg. He was at Appomattox Courthouse. You can see him in the painting.
Him and Matthew Broderick.
Him, Matthew Broderick, and Robert E. Lee. Wow, what a group.
We were talking about... Glory was about the...
Glory was about the 30, and don't get me wrong on the number, the 38th Massachusetts Regiment.
Yeah.
It was a regiment of black soldiers.
Right.
And Matthew Broderick played their commanding officer.
Right, okay.
So Mike Trout would not have been in that regiment.
That's true.
I'm sure he would have been in some New Jersey regiment.
Yes.
And, of course, Bobby Lee was on the other side of that battle. But, hey, I'm sure they would have all met somewhere in there. Mike Trout, Robert E. Lee, and Matthew Broderick.
What a trio.
No Denzel, though, apparently. So.
I can't wait to see their version of the birdcage. It'll be great. I just wonder who gets to do Nathan Lane's part.
Oh, man. Can we please bring Robin Williams back?
I wish.
I wish.
All right. I just randomly started Brooklyn Nine-Nine again because sometimes
I send you memes all the time and you're like, oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yes, and because I'm infatuated with Stephanie Beatriz, obviously.
I'm infatuated with the Wiener Warriors.
Yeah. Oh, Scully and his.
By the way, if I ever play fantasy football again, there's my name.
Wiener Warriors.
We're the Wiener Warriors. Don't say that. Too late.
That's pretty good. Trying to think of anything else I've really watched. Now I can mention it. I haven't been able to keep up with it because I've been saving for these when I actually go back to the physical office. I have a lot of podcasts built up, but one of them is more episodes of The Darkest Timeline with Ken Jeong and Joel McHale. And now I can say to you why that podcast name reference makes sense. Yeah.
They have a podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's called The Darkest Timeline.
Oh, Jesus, help me.
They're on episode 15. Their latest one featured guest star Dave Bautista.
Oh, Jesus, of all people.
I don't remember. What was I only made it through episode 4, so I have a ton to eventually go through. One of them was actually one they did for charity. This was back in early May. Was they actually did a Zoom call of the cast coming back to do one of their a table read of one of the episodes. So I'm excited to. I haven't even watched that one yet, but yeah, the relationship between Ken Jeong and Joel McHale is almost brotherish in that you can tell they like being around each other, but they're also not afraid of ripping each other to bits.
As it should be with those two.
Yes, so it's absolutely wonderful.
They're comic geniuses.
Yes, and hey, you get to. Wait, so I'm trying to think of where. Oh, so you've seen Chang become a cop. I've realized that now.
Oh, yes, and then burn down the cafeteria.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not a cop. He's a security guard.
Security guard, yes.
Dude, what happens if I see somebody committing a crime? Do what any security guard does. Call a real cop.
Call a real cop. Oh, yeah, Chang didn't like that.
Oh, Chang. Oh, it's just...
Chang. I enjoyed learning of Chang basically living in the vents. That was great.
Chang goes places this season. You haven't actually seen anything yet this season.
Jesus Christ. I mean, Chang's a dark, scary individual at this point as is.
I will. So let's see. I will really quickly do this. I'll go back into the Hulu app and because I need to refresh myself. I believe you're on episode like 7-ish.
Right, I'm waiting on episode 7, season 3.
Mm-hmm. So I will say it's on. Let's see, where in season 3 is it? Episode 12. I think it's episode 12. Season 3, episode 12, Contemporary Impressionists. I think that's where it starts. Is the what I will lovingly call an escalation. There is a bit of an escalation that takes place for Chang. And there's only hints in that episode, but it does. And I forgot. You will, as someone who does love the history, you will very much enjoy season 3, episode 14, Pillows and Blankets. Oh my, you will appreciate that episode. That's the episode for you, Wes Fanshaw. So you will enjoy that one, I believe. So that'll do it. That'll do it though for the Watch 4. I don't know. Are we doing any So Raw this week?
No.
Good. Sorry, Vince. Sorry, buddy. It's
sorry, Vince.
Don't worry about it. So that'll do it then for this episode of Foreign Fair Podcast, episode 317. As always, presented by NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. We never stop. You can find them on social media as well as us. If you're even going on social media at this point, if you want to take a nice little break for a day or so. But when you get back on there, you can find us as a collective at AFA Pod. Wes, you are?
I'm at Wes Bradshaw 21.
I am at Edward Green, and you can also find us via our parent show, the All New Sports Show, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube via our parent. I said that in a weird order. You can find us via our parent show on those sites via All New Sports Show, and you can also email us at allnewsportshow@gmail.com. Thanks to our podcast providers, including Podbean.com, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, the TuneIn Radio app, the iTunes Music Store, or the Apple Podcast Store, and then whatever the hell Google Podcast is actually becoming. I'm still not totally clear on there, but if you actually for some reason use Google's podcast app, just search for us, you'll find it on there. So that'll do it for episode 317. Next week when we come back, we'll be 1 week away from talking about Premier League matches. I say that now, realizing that this being the darkest timeline, I have just guaranteed that will now not happen. So, yeah, 2020, everyone. You remember this for a long time listener of the podcast. You'll remember this as well. Do you remember when 2016 came around, and that was the whole my beer year? Because everybody died.
Everybody died. All we now know is they were the lucky ones.
Yeah. 2020 just said, hold my tequila, bitch.
Oh, man.
So, yay.
What can you do?
It's like the Olympics. It comes around every 4 years. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Foreign Fair Podcast, except this year, no Olympics. Wes, before we get out of here, anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, one thing I meant to add earlier.
Sure.
Tomorrow night, tonight, whatever night you're listening to this, Thursday night on ESPN2.
Okay.
We don't really care for the worldwide leader, but ESPN2 is going to have baseball. It is going to be the opening night of the Collegiate Summer Baseball Invitational. We're going to have 2 games. Have you heard about this?
I have not, actually.
More than 70 Division I schools from across the country are represented in the tournament. They're basically 4 teams made up of college baseball players from around the country. And they're going to play some games. Thursday's games are going to be on ESPN2. Then the rest of it is actually going to be on pay-per-view over the weekend.
Okay.
A portion of the proceeds are going to benefit No Kid Hungry. Teams including Auburn, Texas Tech, South Carolina, Alabama, Oregon State, TCU, and NC State are represented in this. But it's not just the D1 guys. You're going to have some NAIA, some JUCOs, a whole smorgasbord of college baseball players, and they're going to be playing some real baseball over the next few days. Because, of course, this would have been regional weekend this past weekend.
Yes.
We'd be getting ready for those super regionals, and I'd be moaning how East Carolina got screwed by somebody somewhere. So
I did find
this is the next best thing I have. I have real baseball on TV tomorrow night.
I did
games at 7 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern. I will take them, and we will be happy.
Yeah, this is crazy. I did appreciate that, as per tradition, still even without it actually happening, with it being Memorial Day and what would have been the weekend of the ACC baseball tournament, Mother Nature still found a way to make it absurdly hot this past weekend, when we had been in like the mid to high 70s for the past week. This weekend ended up being in the 90s, which just goes to show you it would have been a great, nice spring, very temperate climate here, and then for those last couple days in Durham, or I guess this year would have been Charlotte, boom, 90 degrees, motherfucker.
It wasn't that humid.
That is true. That was the saving grace.
Of course, I literally did go running on Saturday and couldn't wear my shoes for 2 days because they were so wet from the sweat. So,
Oof.
Yeah, it was hot.
Oofer doofers. So that is going to do it then for this episode of the Foreign Affair podcast. Everyone I say it every time, and lately I've been saying it because of COVID-19. But seriously, everyone, do stay safe out there. There's a lot of shit going on in this world, and it sucks. We hope, I think, I don't mean to speak for Wes Bradshaw, but I think he'd agree with me. We hope that if you did listen to this episode for the roughly hour and 17 minutes we've been going, that we were able to get you out of that for this little bit, and have you think about anything else, including how stupid we are. Because even that is a welcome reprieve from what's going on in the world right now. So even if that's what you're thinking while listening to this, that is our gift to you, and we will happily give it, because it sucks out there. So thank you for joining us here on the Foreign Affair podcast. And as always, stay safe. And in a couple weeks, you'll be able to enjoy the football again.
And good night, everyone. Protest. Don't burn shit down. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. And leave the London Bridge alone. Assholes.
Yes. Of all things, burn everything down around it.
Leave the bridge because the Premier League's back in 2 weeks.
You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on NGSCSports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.